We'll be going live in about a minute now. Right. Namaskar and a very warm welcome to everyone joined in today on our 49th Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. This talk is being organized by the Central Zoo Authority, New Delhi, as part of the ongoing Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The Mahotsav is a 75-week-long celebration to commemorate 75 years of India's independence, which falls on the 15th of August 2022. The Central Zoo Authority is taking the celebration forward through a massive outreach campaign entitled Conservation to Coexistence, The People Connect. Under the helm of this campaign, we will be showcasing 75 conservation priority species and 75 zoos, highlighting one species and one zoo each week. We're currently in week 49 of the celebration with the great hornbill as the species in focus and the mini zoo Roing, Arunachal Pradesh, as the zoo in focus. So join in today to speak to us on this species is Ms. Pooja Pawar. Ms. Pooja is a research affiliate at the Nature Conservation Foundation, Mysore, and has done her graduation in forestry and master's in wildlife biology from the National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore. She is currently pursuing her doctorate from the Nature Conservation Foundation and is studying hornbill ecology since 2015. The focus of her research is to understand how wildlife responds to changing environments. She's also a member of the IUCN Hornbill Specialist Group and will speak to us today on the ecology status and conservation of the species in focus. So over to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much, Arundhati, for that warm introduction. Good evening, everybody, and I would like to share my screen to know more about the charismatic species, Great Hornbill. Just let me know when the slide is up on the screen.
Yes, it's visible, Pooja. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you so much uh, for inviting me to join in this celebration where we are celebrating different species and all the efforts that have been going in protecting such species. So today's species is very close to my heart because it's beautiful, and I have been studying this species for last 7 years, and I would like to take you through the interesting ecology of this species and how we can strengthen um, the species in Indian subcontinent. So India is a home to 9 species of hornbills in the world. So in Asia, we have 32 species of hornbills, and we have 9. And today's focus of our talk is going to be great hornbill, which earlier used to known as great Indian hornbill. So it is also the largest hornbill in the world. So just to know where does it occur? So in India, it occurs in the Western Ghats. It is its westernmost limit of the distribution, and then it forms somewhat contiguous distribution in the northeast India and Southeast Asia. So if we zoom in to India, so we have the Western Ghats, which is here on the west coast. Then we have uh, uh, Great Hornbill occurring in the northern region, which is mainly Corbett and the Tarai region. And then its occurrence is mainly restricted in the northeastern hills. So there are multiple hypotheses like how this disjunct distribution of hornbills might have come about. So first hypothesis about how did they reach India. So there is a possibility when there was continental drift happening. So hornbills might have entered Indian subcontinent through Western Ghats, or it could have also entered from northeast when it was contiguous to the Asian plate. And multiple paleoclimatic events such as intensification of monsoons, then shrinkage of rainforest like aridification, which has happened many million years ago, that might have also led to the disjunct distribution, which is discontinuous distribution that we see today. So to know more about ecology of hornbills, I'll just take you through some features of the species. So, great hornbill is a large bodied and majestic bird. This wingspan, uh, the length of its wingspan is more than 1.5 meters, and it is also a long-lived species. So in wild, the species is thought to be living for more than 20 years, and in captivity it has also lived up to 40 years in one of the zoos. And the species is also slow reproducing. So in their lifetime they attain sexual maturity at the age of 4, and every year they produce only one offspring, or only one young one. So that's why we call it as a slow reproducing species. And another interesting aspect of hornbills is their unique breeding cycle and parental care mechanism, in which the female uh, enters the nest, which is mainly the cavities in a tree, and she seals herself, and male brings food for the female and the growing chick. And so this is a very unique kind of parental care that we see among birds. And this period also lasts for about 4 months. So 4 months a year they invest in the nesting and breeding, um, which is again very it's not commonly seen in the world of birds. So how do hornbills nest? So hornbills cannot build their own nests, but they nest in the pre-existing cavities or secondary cavities that are formed because of natural reasons, like sometimes a branch falls off from a tree and then the cavity is formed, or it starts rotting and then eventually cavity forms. So such cavities are occupied by hornbill pairs, and in this picture you can see that in this cavity there is a female inside and male is feeding her. uh, so I would like to share one video. Let's see if it is visible. So here we can see the nesting is happening, and the male is bringing food and delivering it to the at the nest. It is absolutely stunning to watch them in the field, how they how different kinds of food fruits they bring and feed at the nest. I hope the video was visible. So hornbills are also known as gardeners or farmers of the forest for the very important ecological service that they provide in the forest. So hornbills are largely frugivorous birds. Majority of their diet is made up of fruits, and they also play important role of seed dispersals in the forest. So they feed on the fruits and drop the seeds of those fruits in at large spatial scales, and hence they are also called as farmers of the forest. Just like farmers, they also, how farmers sow the seeds and get the produce. These species are helping the forest to regenerate. And presence of hornbills in a particular forest patch or forest or any habitat is also indicator of a good health of that forest. So they are indicator species too. So hornbill diet is, as I said, they are frugivorous and predominantly eat fruits. We have recorded more than 50 species of fruits, which vary from few millimeters up to couple of centimeters, or even more. Like some species have seeds as large as about an inch or more. Another commonly uh, another common fruit in their diet is figs. So there are multiple species, more than 30 species of ficuses occur in India and in their habitat, and they feed on those. Uh, Hornbills also feed on animal matter to meet their protein requirements in the growth phases. So they feed on insects, they feed on different species of reptiles, amphibians, rodents, and bats, and they're also known to feed on young birds of other species. What other things hornbill need? So hornbill need tall trees for roosting. So they come together. Hornbills are also a social species where they flock together on large trees, spend the evening, and in the morning they start flying out. It is thought that they also share information about where the resources are available, and also it is also a place where the pairs are formed, mating pairs are formed. So roosting sites are very important for hornbills. So this is one of the picture of a hornbill roost site, which has only, like, it is made up of only couple of tall trees in the landscape, but you can see how many hornbills are um, perching on those trees. And I have been fortunate enough to see a roost site which had more than 70 hornbills at a time, and it was absolutely a sight to behold. So as I said, roosting sites are also sites where hornbill mating pairs are formed. So how these pairs are formed is also very interesting, and again something unique to hornbills. So the competing males, they do some acrobatics in the air, and it is called casque-butting. So what happens is the young males fly up in the air, lock their beaks, as you can see in the middle picture, and swirl down speedily. So the male that is still strong and not falling down is considered to be winner, and he gets the female, or female chooses him over the losing candidate. And then they go on to find the cavity, and then they start the nesting there. uh, so this is about their ecology. Now we would quickly look at uh, the importance of hornbills in our culture. So hornbills are pride for many ethnic groups, many states, and also for they are species of cultural importance. So as we all know, hornbills, or great hornbill specifically, is a state bird of Arunachal and Kerala, whereas other species are state birds. Like for example, Indian grey hornbill is, which is relatively smaller, is the state bird of Chandigarh Union Territory. Sorry, of Chandigarh. Then hornbills is also a symbol for many indigenous groups. Like in this photo, you can see the village headman wearing the casque of the hornbill, and it is thought to be it is a symbolism, or symbolic, to the bravery, to the responsibilities that village headman has to bear, and many such things. And in different regions, they also have very interesting local names. So some people call it uh, Vedambal, which is something similar to uh, uh, a bird that flies very high, and many such name, which is very interesting. And I would be interested to know if there are any other names in different dialects of Arunachal Pradesh. And there are many folklores in our culture that are centered around the presence of hornbills. So where do these hornbills are found, or what does their habitat what do their habitats look like? So great hornbills occur from low to mid elevation, which are mostly moist forest in India. They also occur in high elevation evergreen forests. They are habitants of swamp areas. Myristica swamps are one of the important sites or habitats for hornbills. Then they also occur in home gardens and sacred groves, which are predominantly well known in the Western Ghats region. So this is another photo of a rainforest canopy. Typically, it looks like this, which has tall, towering trees with majority of them have this broccoli shaped structures, the canopies, and this is considered to be hornbill's habitat. But we also are seeing drastic changes to their habitats, like the one in the photo. So this is a tea plantation in the Anamalais hills, which has, where once there was a tall tropical canopies were standing, and now we can see them only in the small strips and patches here and there. So hornbills are like, this is not their habitat, and it's been changing. uh, Here are few more examples of how their habitats are being changed. So here is one photo from northern Western Ghats, where the plantation, the the forest has been cleared for a commercial plantation. Then we also have uh, habitat uses such as agriculture and riverine patches. Then we also have some commercial plantations like rubber plantations growing coming up, and which is kind of threatening the presence of hornbills in that region. So another reasons why their habitats are changing, or what are the threats to their habitats, are a, forest loss, because they are the forest arboreal species. Then increasing mining and encroachment threats affect their habitats and direct presence of the species also. And expansion of monoculture plantations across the country. So, just to give you an example, if we come to the Western Ghats, and if we look at the Kali River, which is beautiful river, which runs for about 350 kilometers from its origin, it has six major dams. So that is the magnitude at which uh, the its habitats is damaged, or it's been hindered by anthropogenic pressures. And then, there are threats, which includes direct hunting of the species, uh, which directly leads to decline of the species. Then removal of large trees for the timber purposes, and given that it's a large bird, it also needs cavities which are present in such large trees. And at the loss of large trees, they also do not have other options of nesting, and hence their numbers go down. So, I would like to talk about, or briefly take you through, what are the hornbill conservation efforts that have been done earlier, and what are the opportunities that we can think of. So, first is the joining hands with the local communities, because forest is as much as important for people as it is for wildlife, and the local indigenous communities are absolutely essential, and they can play a big role in protecting species. So some stakeholders like tribal communities, forest department, private plantation companies, and also residents around that region could play very important role in protection of the species. Here is a photo from Kerala forest, where the tribals belonging to Kadar community, once they used to, they were nomadic tribes, and they used to hunt down this species. But in collaboration with forest department and other stakeholders, they were included in the conservation or protection activities, and then they were called friends of hornbills. Similarly, one such story comes from Arunachal Pradesh, where near Pakke Tiger Reserve, uh, uh, scientists and researchers have identified close to 100 hornbill nests, and many villages have participated in it. So the local members of those village, they uh, they are appointed as nest protectors, and their job is to protect the assigned nest to them. So they do take care of, if the nesting is happening or not, when it is happening, if there is any threat to their nests, and so on. So more than 100 chicks have successfully fledged, and it is considered as one of the success story in hornbill conservation in India. And the program is called Hornbill Nest Adoption Program, where the people who are not closer to the forest, but they are willing to contribute towards the conservation of species, they participate through monetary contribution, and that money goes into supporting the nest protectors. In recent times, there has been more efforts in increasing appreciation about the species among citizens. One of the good example is Pakke Paga festival, which you all might be familiar with, where the and it is also state festival now, so it has got recognized at much larger scale, and now it is recognized as a state festival, where people from all over the world flock together in near Pakke Tiger Reserve to see hornbills, to know more about them, and also understand the cultural importance of this species in the lives of the indigenous communities there. And similar efforts have been started in Karnataka, where they also host Hornbill Festival, where again tourists and everybody is welcomed, and they get insightful information on the lives of hornbills. There is another growing field called citizen scientist or citizen science, where every person who is interested in contributing towards science can play a role. So there's one site called Hornbill Watch, where everybody can report their sightings of hornbills online, and it has been used by scientists to understand how species are distributed, how species populations are doing. So, for example, in this graph, you can see the first one is great hornbill, and about the light color here is the sightings which have occurred outside forest areas or protected areas, and the dark one indicates the hornbills that were sighted inside any protected area. So almost 40% of the sightings come from outside protected areas, and this just highlights the need for conservation of hornbills not only in the protected areas but also outside, because that is also a habitat important for hornbills. So similarly, might be familiar with there is a global citizen map for birds, and the map shows sightings recorded or observations recorded by the bird watchers in the country, and which again highlights the distribution of great hornbill. And the graph, which was generated as a part of State of India's bird report, uh, shows that in last 20 odd years, the species has shown nearly 30% of decline uh, overall, like in all these regions that it occurs. And this has helped us in mapping the current distribution of the species, as well as understand the population trends. And it helps or directly feeds in the conservation measures that one need to take. Another way to assure hornbills persistent in our regions is to restore their habitats. So we will have to first identify the key sites, which are hornbill hotspots, where we know that historically hornbills are occurring in large numbers. We can have a nursery of uh, for hornbill food plants. So we have almost recorded nearly more than 50 hornbill food plants. So we can raise them and plant them in our area, in respective forest or patches, and assure that or ensure that hornbill food plants are present. And also people can plant those in their home gardens and farms, and it could, by restoring habitats, we can also preserve the wildlife corridors which are essential for hornbills as well. In addition to that, people who are interested in contributing to the species or conservation efforts can also be foster parents by participating into nest adoption program. You can try and make your farms and gardens hornbill friendly by planting the foods that they eat, and people can also donate to the research that we engage in, and help us strengthen our efforts to conserve the species. I would like to, now we are towards the end, and I would like to thank everybody who has helped me, mentored me, and accompanied me on field while I was exploring the world of hornbills. And it was absolutely not possible without them to I would like to thank each and every person who was participated in the studies. And of course, this work that we have been doing wouldn't have been possible without support from many institutions, many funding agencies, and many stakeholders like plantation companies. So thanks to all of them. I would like to acknowledge their support and cooperation in all the aspects of our studies. And yeah, here I end, and I would like to take questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pooja, for the all-encompassing talk on the species in focus and the research and the kind of activities that have done in its conservation in such a short span of time. We will take question answers for this session at the end. We'll now move on to the talk on the zoo. So, joined in today to speak to us on the Zoo in Focus is Mr. Mori Riba, who is a divisional forest officer of the Wildlife Sanctuary Division Roing and officer in charge of the mini zoo Roing, Lower Dibang Valley District. He has worked with the Department of Environment and Forest of Arunachal Pradesh for over 2 decades, looking after over matters pertaining to the management of forests and wildlife. And will speak to us today more on the Zoo in Focus. So, sir, I will share the presentation for you. Please let me know if it's visible. So is the presentation visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes. So please proceed.
Good afternoon, everybody. सभी को मैं जय हिंद कहता हूँ. So I'm looking after this mini zoo since last 2 years. So Roing mini zoo, initially it was established as a rescue center since 1985. We were very much successful in rescuing wild animals. So in 2008, it has been upgraded to mini zoo. Since then, it's functioning as a mini zoo with the objective of education, recreation, rescue, and rehabilitation of wild animals. So, mini zoo Roing is located at a level of 350 mean sea level. So, it's just spread over 2.5 hectares. Roing in a state. This mini zoo is looked after by the officer in charge of Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary Division, going with his staff. There hasn't been any posts created against the mini zoo, nor there has been posting of staff exclusively for the mini zoo. So, Wildlife Divisional Forest Office, Mihao, looks after, take care of the mini zoo. So this mini zoo is housed about 7 mammals with barking deer, hog deer, Assamese macaque, leopard cat, rhesus monkeys, and all. So it's a very small zoo and limited in confined to a limited area. So our main activities have been, please show me the slide. So as a rescue center, this elephant calf was rescued and it has been named as Taiwan. So it has been successfully rescued and translocated to Elephant Rehabilitation Center at National Park, Kaziranga. So it's doing very good there. So whoever visits Kaziranga, they are requested to see this rescued elephant calf. Now I think it has been almost 1 year, so it is very healthy and active there at Kaziranga National Park. Next slide. So this is my zoo curator, Dr. Kabuk Lego. He has been very much keen in these types of operations of this Miha Wildlife Sanctuary. So at the backyard is the mini zoo area. Next slide. This is how we are gearing up this barking deer. We are around 14 barking deers are inside the mini zoo. Next. This is how we feed them. We have successfully bred in captivity this barking deer. This is another barking deer feeding. This is a bird which we rescued and released into natural habitat. This is bear cubs. 2 bear cubs were rescued some 7-8 months back, and it has been taken to bear rehabilitation center at Pakke Tiger Reserve, Sijusa. These 2 cubs are doing excellently there. So next, this is the Hoclock gibbon. It is plenty in Miha Wildlife Sanctuary. So, in the dawn and dusk, you can hear the sounds of these Hoclock gibbon. This is how my forest officers field exerciser for sightseeing, visiting within the Miao Lake. This is feed items being provided, being ready for the zoo animals. Banana. This is feed items. There one fox is there, fox. So we are giving them wheat. This is planting activities being taken up inside the zoo premises by the curator himself. And all forest festival as such, like World Environment Day, Wildlife Week, these are observed inside the zoo. It has been privileged to invite few guests during such type of celebrations. This is the case. So this is our exercises for fruit-bearing tree plantation to be planted inside Miha Wildlife Sanctuary. The curator and the local well-wisher taking part at planting. So these are our staff of Miha Wildlife Sanctuary. So as I said earlier, we haven't any staff exclusively for the zoo. So these are the staff of Miha Wildlife Sanctuary Division. They take care of the mini zoo. The animal keeper itself, he himself is also a contingent staff of the territorial of the wildlife division. So though he's a contingent staff, he takes care of the animal and he feeds all. This is awareness training of officers, including our wildlife staff at the headquarter level. So my zoo curator, he has been actively taking part in these type of trainings and awareness campaign. So that way he is spreading good message, very good message to the vicinity of the zoo and the sanctuary. Next. So within the Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary, there is a lake, Mihao Lake, which spreads over 200 hectares. So it is about 4 to 5 hours. Those who can work smoothly, they covers it in 3 to 4 hours. But others, they used to take about around 4 to 5 hours to 6 hours to reach the lake. So the spread, it is about at the altitude of around 200, 2030 meters. So whoever visits Miniju Roing, they will be taken to Mihao Lake at the high altitude. Here within the Mihao Lake and within the Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary, we can experience snowfall at more than 2,500, 2,500 meter from mean sea level. So in winters, scores of hundreds of tourists visit the Maldives Pass, which is located within the sanctuary. So I welcome all the visitors and I welcome the team of CJD and other forest officers to Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary and Arunachal Pradesh. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for giving a brief overview of the zoo as well as, the Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary that you are a part of. We now move on to question and answers for today's talk. So Pooja, we'll take up questions first for the species. So are you there?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So the first question for you is that the hornbills are monogamous species?
Yes. So I missed mentioning in my presentation. So thank you for the question. So yes, hornbills are thought to be monogamous. They mate for life, and once the pair is formed, the same pair occupies the nest. Again, they also occupy the same nest every year as long as the nest cavity is in good health.
Right. So I think in line to that, the second question is that how long does the female stay confined to the nest during the nesting period, and what happens in case the male dies during this time?
Right. So the entire nesting period lasts for about for one like 4 months, say around 120 to 130 days, and female stays inside till 110 days or so. And we fortunately I haven't seen where one of the partner is died and what happens next, but I've heard from the people who have seen this or experienced this earlier that the female comes out of the nest, so the nest is abandoned, and we really don't have information on if she pairs up with another individual or what happens the next, so we are not sure about it.
All right. Then moving on to the next question is that how are there any long-term hornbill nest monitoring programs across the country to see how the species is faring?
Yes. So the nest adoption program that I mentioned, it has been going on for at least 7 years or more than that, where all the about 100 nests are being monitored every year to check if the nest is active or not, if the young ones are fledging successfully or not. So that is one long term we have. From the Western Ghats, we do have long term information where initial set of nests were identified in the year 1991 and 92, and when I was working we revisited them in 2017 and 18, and we realized that nests are standing in good shape and hornbills are occupying even after 27 years since they were discovered first. So yeah, but this is the state of nests. um, but many a times hornbills do get predated by other wildlife like martins and others. So in that case, the nest wouldn't be successful. So decline in the population, though they have very high nesting success.
Right. So, Pooja, next question for you is that you mentioned that people can contribute to the research and monitoring efforts that are being carried out. Can you just elaborate on how it is that is possible?
Yeah, so depending on how much time and how much resources one want to engage in the research, they can participate. So first, the easiest is the citizen science programs, where they can report their own sightings, which at later point we scientists can use it to make sense of what is happening to the species. So that is one. Second is, if you have a farm, home garden, or any garden, you can try to make it more hornbill friendly by first retaining large trees, if especially if they have nest cavities. So that would be one way. Another way is to increase the diversity of hornbill food plants in the region. There is another. And the other, where you don't have time to come in the forest and work or contribute in the research directly, you can support us by giving monetary contributions, which directly goes towards protection of the species.
Right. And one more question for you is that does the species show site fidelity in terms of outside the breeding season? Do they show any kind of site fidelity apart from the nest? The thing that you mentioned about nests, that they come back to the same nests?
Right. So during non-breeding season, they are quite nomadic because they're tracking resources like fruits at much larger scale. So they are not truly site fidel, or they do not show strong site fidelity during non-breeding, but they are territorial and show strong site fidelity during nesting season or breeding season.
All right, right. And the last question for you is that zoos in India house this species sporadically. So, how do you think that zoos can spread the message for conservation of this species and the habitats which are essential for the species?
Right. So I think the first important thing that zoos can play role in, uh, because they have the detailed information on from where the individuals have come. And as I said, in captivity mostly hornbills live for longer periods. So if we could get uh, or if we could use those individuals to genotype them and have molecular information, that would tell us much more than what we are seeing today. So that is one way they can contribute in understanding as well as conservation of a particular region or particular habitat and the overall species also. So I think that is a very good contribution that zoo can, or rather only zoos can have access to. So that is one. And other thing is, zoos are also recreational points or places where many people visit. And apart from just tourism, people also tend to take away or engage with interesting species, and hornbill is definitely one of such. So many outreach activities or some information related to hornbill ecology or their life cycle would be really interesting, and I'm sure many zoos are already doing it, where visitors are benefited with the information that is being displayed.
Right, right, Pooja. So I think those were the questions for you. Thank you. And we now move on to questions for Mr. Riva. So, sir, the first question for you is that within your zoo, and since it's so close to the Mehao Wildlife Sanctuary, what are the kind of outreach activities that you do for spreading conservation awareness in your locality?
As my mini zoo was established since 1985 and Minijo status since 2008 for recreation education activities only we are propagating. So during Wildlife Week observations, we used to invite students from various schools to the zoo, and sometimes my team they goes to the villages for awareness campaign. That way, and then this whole environment day is also campaign from our side on the part of the mini zoo. So mostly this wildlife conservation activities being taken up in peripheral villages. This is our villages lying along the boundary of the wildlife sanctuary. We take them to the field, and the Mihao Lake, which is at a distance of around 6 kilometer walk. Many people are being taken there to see the wilderness of the Mihao Lake, the species around. Of course, these days we do not see this great hornbill these days. Earlier, it used to be the whole habitat area for those hornbills. So maybe due to this Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary is contiguous to Kamlang Wildlife Sanctuary, then Namdafa Tiger Project. So I think our birds, the hornbills, they might have migrated to those sides. So if our activities, awareness activities goes on most often. So next within the next 2-3 months, our campaign again starts.
All right, sir. And so there's another question for you that asks that what are the kind of future plans that are there for the zoo? Are there any new developments in line or something? If you can elaborate on that.
We have been requesting our department for renovation of our animal enclosures. So we have our security wall for keeping intact the area and to keep restrict the visitors and regulating all our activities. We are improving our zoo, improving our animal enclosures, and trying to relocate. It's a plan, of course. Trying to relocate the zoo at a wider area. So our area, present mini zoo, is very located within a restricted area. So if it's my desire, it will be our desire that it's a spread of the zoo is increased. That way, such there is no definite program as such now, but we have conceived this.
Right, sir. So I think those were the questions for you. And with this, we come to an end for our 49th New Year's
Ma'am,
speeches.
one minute, ma'am. I have an opinion from Ms. Pooja and the CZA. So my Mihao Wildlife Sanctuary spreads from 300 meter MSL to 3,500 meter. So earlier there used to be plenty of hornbills, but now these hornbills they are not visible now. Can the CZA or Ms. Pooja, can you take a plan for conservation of hornbill? Not only this great hornbill, but the smaller species also within the sanctuary. So if CZA can support us, and if Ms. Pooja, you can support us, then we will be very much thankful.
So definitely we can look forward to this collaboration in the future. And it's a very, it's a good idea that, you can looking at the ecology of the species and figuring out where the hornbills went, because as per you they've moved. So we could definitely look at this the possibility of exploring this collaboration in the future. So, but for now, for the reasons of this talk, I think we've come to an end to our 49th Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. And on behalf of the Central Zoo Authority, I would like to thank both Ms. Pooja and to you, sir, for taking time out of your schedules and joining us for this talk, and to the audience who have been with us throughout this session. And would also like to inform the audience that we'll be back next week on Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. For our Week 50 talk, which will be on the Asian brown tortoise and the Lady Hyderabad Park Animal Land, which is the Meghalaya Zoo. So do tune in for that talk as well from 4 to 5 p.m. And that's all for today's Hornbill talk. So see you again next week. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. I have been
Thank you so much.
privileged to be there at the 49th week of celebration of 75 weeks, 75 species, and 75 Jews. Conservation to coexistence. The people connect.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Pooja.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
and
Looking forward
Madam
to work with
Policy.
you,
Thank
sir.
you.